Hey guys, today I'm gonna show you how to create this futuristic login screen. At first, create a new composition with 1920 and 1080 pixels and name it login screen. The first thing I do is to show the grid. For this, go to View and click on Show Grid. Now fade in the rulers. For this, go to View and click on Show Rulers or press Ctrl+R on the keyboard. You can move in guides by dragging them out of the respective ruler. With right click you can edit the position of them. I want to have the guides exactly in the middle of the frame, so I set the position to 9060 and 540 pixels. To zoom in, simply turn the mouse wheel, and to move the frame, hold down the mouse wheel. The next step is to design our login window with the pen tool. Feel free to design your own shape. To fine position the vertices, use the selection tool. It's important that you selected the shape and not the entire shape layer, otherwise you will only be able to move the whole shape and not the individual vertices. Now I hide the grid. I do this very often in this tutorial to see the design without the confusing grid. With pressing Enter on the keyboard you can rename your layers depending on how you like it, but it makes everything a lot clearer. Now I fill the window shape white and I want to align the layer. To blend in the Align menu, click on Window and on Align. With this feature you can align layers horizontally and vertically. Create everything in white because we want to change the color later. Now I am duplicating the window layer with Ctrl+D and rename the new layer to Window Strokes. Set the fill options to none and the stroke options to solid color and set the stroke width to 6. To change the opacity of the window layer, press T on the keyboard and set the opacity to 20%. It's every time the same. Check or uncheck Show Grid in the View menu. Click on the pen tool and create a new shape. Be careful, if you selected an old shape layer, After Effects will create the new shape in this old shape layer and not in a new one. Name the new shape layer Window Name Background and set the fill to solid color and the stroke color to none. Use the horizontal type tool to create a login lettering. I use Impact as font and font size 50. With the selection tool you can position the text. Change the tracking for the selected character to around 60 to make the lettering longer. Set the font color to white and the track matte of the layer called Window Name Background to Luma Inverted Matte. With this technique we cut the lettering out of the layer Window Name Background. Create a new composition called Face ID with 800 x 800 pixels. Use the pen tool to create a little frame in the left down corner. Set the fill to none, the stroke to solid color and the width to 10 pixels. That was the positioning problem I was talking about earlier. Snap the vertices to the grid. Duplicate the shape in the submenu content, not the whole shape layer. Change the dimension of this new frame and the stroke width a little bit smaller to create a 3D effect. Add a repeater to the shape layer, set copies to 4, the rotation to 90 degrees and the position to 0 and 0. Rename the shape layer to Window Strokes and duplicate the layer with Ctrl D. Rename the new layer in Window Strokes Light. With T on the keyboard, open the opacity submenu and change the opacity of the Window Strokes Light layer to 100% and the opacity of the Window Strokes layer to 50%. Delete in the submenu contents Shape 2 and add to Shape 1 trim paths. For this, click on Shape 1 and choose in the Add menu Trim Paths. Open the Trim Path menu and set the start and end values to 50% at the beginning of the timeline. Create 2 keyframes. 15 frames later, set the start value to 0% and the end value to 100%. Mark the keyframes with holding down the left mouse button and smooth the keyframes with pressing F9 on the keyboard. Duplicate the Window Strokes Light layer with Ctrl D and add Luma to the name of the new layer. Change the position of the trim path keyframes in this new shape layer. And set the track matte of the normal light layer to Luma Inverted Matte. Now you have this laser gun or whatever effect. Add motion blur to the 2 light shapes. If you don't see this menu, simply press F4 on the keyboard. Now sort the 2 layers and duplicate them like I do. There is another way to loop this animation which I explain at the end of the video. The timestamp is in the description. Mark all light layer and pre-compose them with right-click Pre-compose. Add Gaussian blur to the new composition and set the blurriness to around 15. Set the opacity to 70%. Now go to Project and double-click to import an Illustrator file. You can download the Illustrator file with the link down in the description. Set Import Kind to Composition and hit OK. Open the Face Scan composition and mark all 3 layers. Right-click, Create Shapes from Vector Layers. Now you can delete the Illustrator files. Set the opacity of the Face Outlines layer to 50% and drag the Face Scan composition in your Face ID composition. With S on the keyboard you can scale up the Face Scan. Create a new solid and name it Scanner. Set the solid color to white. Now search in the Effect panel for the beam effect. Set the length to 100%, the starting point to 700 and 540, the ending point to 1220 and 540, the starting and the ending thickness to 50, and the inside and outside color to white. Set the opacity of the scanner to 50%. While holding down the Alt key, click the stopwatch and type in wiggle open bracket 1, 20, close bracket. I am changing the expressions sometimes during the video. If you want to use the expressions which I am using in the final result, take a look in the description. Press P on the keyboard and while holding down the Alt key, click on the position stopwatch and type in open squared bracket value, open squared bracket 1, closed squared bracket, comma, wiggle open bracket 0.2, 300, close bracket, open square bracket 0, closed square bracket, closed square bracket. Go to the login screen composition and drag in the Face ID composition. Scale the composition down with S on the keyboard and position it with the selection tool. The scanner is a little bit slow, so let's change the expression. If you already used the expressions from the description, you don't have to change her. Create a new shape layer and name it Text Field. Create a square with the pen tool and position it that it looks good. Set the stroke width to 5. Add to the text field shape layer another shape. Set the stroke of this new shape to none and the fill to solid color. Duplicate the text field shape layer with Ctrl D and position it with the selection tool under the other text field. Use the text tool to add the text username. Don't forget to deactivate the caps lock after typing. I set the font size to 15 and tracking for the selected character to 100. I check if Snap to Grid is activated, and yeah it is, so I deactivate it. Now position the username text with the selection tool. Duplicate the text layer with Ctrl D and change the text to password. Now position the password text with the selection tool. Position the username layer under the text field tool layer in the timeline. Change the track matte of the two text field layer in Luma inverted matte. If you don't see the menu, simply press F4. The next step is to create a new shape layer and name it Cursor. Use the pen tool and create a straight line. Set the fill to none and the stroke to solid color. The stroke width is farther 5 pixels. Change the position with pressing P on the keyboard. Press T on the keyboard and while holding down the Alt key press the opacity stopwatch. Type in Math.sin, open bracket time multiplied 10, close bracket multiplied 100. Create a new text field with your username and resize until you think it looks good. Duplicate the username text with Ctrl D and fill the text field with dots. This will be your password. Make it a little bit bigger than the username. Change the position till it looks good. Search in the effect panel for the typewriter effect and drag it on your username. With pressing U on the keyboard you can open all keyframes of a layer. Change the position of the range selector keyframe. Do the same for the password layer. Press U and change the position of the keyframes. In this case I do a little special thing. I want to add a correction of the password. Maybe the user was mistyping, so I add 2 more keyframes. Now I add the position change of the cursor. For this, mark the cursor layer and press P on the keyboard. Create a keyframe when the username begins to appear. Go in the timeline forward till the username is completely appeared, and change at this point the position of the cursor. Go 1 keyframe forward and set the Y coordinate lower till the cursor is in the second text field, and set the X coordinate to the same coordinate as in the first keyframe. Go in the timeline forward till the password begins to appear. Open with View the keyframes of the password and create at the same time keyframes for the position of the cursor. Mark everything with Ctrl A and pre-compose it. Name the composition login window. Press T on the keyboard and create a fade out effect for the login window. Now create a new shape layer and name it loading dot. Create an ellipse with double clicking on the ellipse tool. Open the ellipse path and resize it to a circle with a size of 350 pixels. Duplicate the circle with Ctrl D and set the fill of the second circle to none and the stroke to solid color. Open the opacity settings of the loading dot and create a fade-in effect, which is 1 second long. The 1 second length is important for the percentage animation. If you want to change the fade-in length, you have also to change the percentage expression. Open the transform submenu of the first circle and create there the same opacity animation to get this offset of the filling from the contour. For the percentage, create a new text layer and open in the text submenu source text. While holding down the Alt key, click on the stopwatch and type in Math.round, open bracket, time multiplied 100, close bracket, plus, quotation mark, %, quotation mark. Rename the text layer to percentage and align it to the middle of the frame and pre-compose it. Short the new composition to 1 second and position her at the beginning of the fade-in of the circle. Add to the percentage also an fade-in effect. Now add some little position keyframes to guarantee that the percentage will always be in the middle of the frame. Add keyframes to the size of the filled ellipse and shrink the ellipse to 20 pixels after the percentage hits 100%. Put on an opacity keyframe to hide the ellipse too. Add at the same place in the timeline an opacity keyframe to the whole shape layer and create at second 7 a keyframe with the opacity 50%. Add a repeater to the shape layer and change the position to 96 and 0. Set the copies to 11 and create a keyframe at second 7 and frame 15. Go back to second 7 and set copies to 1. Now duplicate the repeater with Ctrl D and set the position to -96. Duplicate the repeater with Ctrl D and set the position to 0 and 108. Set the copies to 6 at second 7 and frame 15. Duplicate the repeater with Ctrl D and set the position to 0 and -108. Mark the shape layer and press U till you see the same as me. Change the position of the third and fourth repeater keyframes and smooth all repeater keyframes with pressing F9 to make the animation more interesting. I set the opacity of this whole animation to 30% because the dots were too visible in my opinion. Now I create a vignette. For this, create a black solid and double click on the ellipse mask tool. Set the mask feather to around 550 and the opacity to 50%. To create a wave animation to the dots, create the same dot layout once again. Create a new shape layer with an ellipse stroke on it, stroke width around 100. Add a size animation to this ellipse like I do and smooth the animation with F9. Create after a few seconds a third keyframe. We need this keyframe to loop the size animation with a break. While holding down the Alt key, click on the size stopwatch and type in LoopOut, open bracket, quotation mark, cycle, quotation mark, comma, 0, close bracket. You can use this technique also for the light gun animation at the Face ID window at the beginning of the video. I don't know why I haven't used it there. Add Gaussian blur to the circle and set the blurriness to around 150. Set the track matte of the second dot layer to Luma matte. And yeah, you have this bumping wave animation. Change the opacity of the second dot layer to 50%. Now close all layer with Ctrl A and U. It's time for colorizing. Create an adjustment layer and search in the effect panel for the tint effect. Change map white to every color you want. I choose this hacker green. Search in the effect panel for the glow effect and add this effect also to the adjustment layer. Set glow threshold to 73% and glow radius to 150. To not leave the background so boring, create a black solid and position the solid under everything in the timeline. Add the tint effect to the solid and change the map black to a dark gray to create this dark green background. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and we see us in the next part where I am creating the hacker programs. See ya!